Well, good afternoon, everybody. I am delighted to be here. First of all, I want to thank Josh for such a nice introduction. And I want to thank him, too, for his vision for Thurgood Marshall. I think Josh taught 1 or 2, maybe 3 years at Ballou High School before he launched this venture. And it was his passion and his commitment, his intellect, that has resulted in what we have today in this extraordinary school. And I just want to thank you for staying the course. I think everybody appreciates the fact that Thurgood Marshall is a sterling educational institution, Josh, and it is located in an area of the city that we know has tremendous needs and tremendously appreciates what Thurgood Marshall is doing for our young people. So let me thank you and ask everybody to give you a big hand for what you've done. I want to thank all of you all for coming out today. And while there are many people who I could acknowledge here today, there are a couple of people who I want to, whose presence I do want to acknowledge. First of all, a dear friend who came today, who I've known for so many years, who has served this city so incredibly well as once an absolutely outstanding staffer at the Council of the District of Columbia. And then she became the member serving Ward 6 in such a sterling fashion. A very, very dear friend, Council Member Sharon Ambrose. And I also, of course, have to acknowledge my friend who has worked so hard on the State Board of Education, serving as the president of that board, working with the other members to help make the transition from a local Board of Education to what has become, I think, an absolutely outstanding operation. I've been delighted to work with her and watch the way this board has really melded together, how it has moved to take on state responsibilities, and in no small measure due to her work. And that is, of course, Lisa Raymond. Lisa. I am, again, excited to have this discussion at Thurgood Marshall, which, of course, is one of our outstanding charter schools here in the District of Columbia, working to make careers in legal professions accessible to our young people. And I think if you look at its performance, which Josh talked about, and you look at what its graduates have done, you can appreciate what an enormous contribution it makes. And as I promised in my kickoff speech on April 24th, which now seems like 7 years ago, I promised that I would be releasing a series of detailed policy plans on a number of issues over the coming weeks and months of this campaign. I wanted to start today with education, because I believe, frankly, that there is no more important priority for the next mayor than ensuring our children receive the highest quality education that is possible. That's why I was disappointed, frankly, that the mayor backed out of our debate on education earlier this week. This is an issue where there are clear differences between him and me, and the people of the District of Columbia deserve to know where we stand. For me, education is not just an election year issue. It's one that is absolutely near and dear to my heart. I'm a graduate of the D.C. public school system. I went on to one of our city's great universities for undergraduate and graduate school training, that is George Washington University. And my late wife was an outstanding educator in our public school system, and purely coincidentally, today happens to be the anniversary of her death. And if you look in the Washington Post, you will see her picture in the Washington Post today, as I've done every year since she passed on. When I was elected council chair, I made education one of my top priorities. And in fact, I would say it is my top priority. And I'm proud of my record on education since I became the chair. One of my first acts as chair was to move education into the Committee of the Whole, to demonstrate that this was a top priority of the entire Council of the District of Columbia. I led the fight to expand pre-K, and I'm proud that by this fall, years ahead of schedule, we'll hit our goal of becoming the first jurisdiction in America to offer true universal pre-K to all of our 3-year-olds and their families in the District of Columbia. I fought, joining with others, to create a DC Community College and to invest in the University of the District of Columbia. And I led the fight on the council to bring much-needed school reform to the district. From day one, I have given Mayor Fenty tremendous credit for raising the issue of school reform, even though he voted against it when he was on the council. That's why I was proud to carry the effort for mayoral takeover of the schools to empower a strong chancellor, eliminate bureaucracy, strengthen accountability, and place a sorely needed focus on modernizing public school facilities in our great city. Unfortunately, though Mayor Fenty's hands-off management style has resulted in a short-sighted, narrow, and sometimes secretive approach to the education reform effort in the city. What we've learned over the past 3 years is that it's not enough to have mayoral control. What we need, ladies and gentlemen, is mayoral leadership. We need a mayor who understands that we must take a more holistic approach to education and rebuild the public trust in our public education system, especially if we're going to provide our children with the foundation they need in order to achieve success. A mayor who will focus on the entire birth to 24 education process. A mayor who understands the value of listening to the community. And most of all, a mayor who will take a more involved role in the decision-making process if mayoral control is to translate into accountability for all of our citizens in the city. You have my promise and my pledge that that is exactly the kind of mayor that I intend to be when we become mayor on January 2nd, 2011. As mayor, I will take education reform to the next level. My plan is comprehensive, inclusive, and redefines the way city government will approach education. It begins with 4 core principles that will guide our approach. First, we must continue smart education reform and make it sustainable. I remain committed to school reform. We cannot afford to turn back the clock on the important reforms that have been effectuated in the last several years. I will work closely with a strong chancellor and the community in pursuit of innovative reforms based on research and best practices. I'll empower the chancellor to make tough decisions, and I'll remain involved in the way those decisions are made. This is going to be a long-term effort. I think we all know that. If we're going to bring outstanding, cutting-edge programs like international baccalaureate programs, STEM, total immersion language programs, and raise the achievement levels for all of our kids to the District of Columbia. In order to do that, we need to realize that it will not necessarily all happen during the tenure of one chancellor or one mayor. School reform needs to be sustainable in the District of Columbia. My second principle is that we must look at education as a lifelong endeavor. Education begins long before kindergarten and continues well after high school. We need to focus at every stage of education, from birth through post-secondary education and the world of work, so that every young person in the District of Columbia has the tools to be able to successfully compete in life. Third, we must work with our students, parents, public school employees, and community as a part of the solution, not scapegoat them for the problems of our educational system in the District of Columbia. We cannot continue to alienate the very people who must buy in if schools are to thrive and be successful in our city. They must be part of the solution. Our parents, our teachers, our community leaders, and our school administrators all working together for the benefit of our children in the District of Columbia. When I'm mayor, I will insist on respect for all. I will bring a collaborative approach to education reform so that all stakeholders in our education system have a seat at the table. We will work to ensure that good teachers are valued and empowered. We'll honor and empower charter schools like Thurgood Marshall, which has developed a strong partnership with its neighbor D.C. Public School, the Savoy Elementary School, which of course is right next door. We'll engage parents in their children's education, and we'll make sure that every community in D.C. can get involved in the process. Finally, we must restore accountability and sound management to our schools. We cannot allow the fiscal mismanagement of this administration to hamper our efforts at creating a financially viable school system. Whether it is failure to complete our educational database, failure to meet the criteria for our federal Race to the Top application, or mismanaging the school budget so that we don't even know whether we have a surplus or a deficit, our students and teachers are the ones that suffer. I'll make it a priority to bring accountability and fiscal management to our education system. Now that I've told you what the core principles are, let me outline some of the proposals that will tell you how we'll get it done. As I mentioned earlier, the only way for aggressive school reform to work is with mayoral leadership working with a strong chancellor and an engaged community. We can only do this if we do it together. As mayor, I will have a strong, empowered chancellor and support that person's efforts to continue reforms within D.C. Public Schools. We will give the chancellor the tools to manage the budget, and we'll continue to support the chancellor in making hard choices to get bad teachers out of the classroom and keep good teachers in our classrooms. Now, let me say a word about our current chancellor. I'm often asked if I intend to ask the chancellor, Chancellor Rhee, to stay on. I think, frankly, that she's done some good things for our schools, and I will consider asking her to stay on. But let's be clear, my friends, that's not the right question. The issue is not whether or not I keep Chancellor Rhee on. The issue is that how do we create a blueprint for sustainable school reform that doesn't simply rely on one or two people in the District of Columbia? An education system that hinges on one person is a system that ultimately cannot succeed. Yes, it's going to take a strong chancellor, but it's also going to take community buy-in and mayoral leadership for our schools to be able to succeed in the long term, and that is exactly the prescription I intend to pursue. Let me underscore that I want to make sure that we have that kind of blueprint and commitment for sustainable reform. And I will provide the leadership that engages all of our civic, professional, and educational institutions in this city to work with our parents, teachers, and our community in order to get it done. As mayor, I will work with our chancellor to unleash and embrace the power of the community. I think we all understand that we don't do a very good job of that at present, and it's costing us dearly at present. As an example, we lost out on $100 million in aid when the federal government rejected our Race to the Top application. Their reason? They said that DC's application lacked critical buy-in from key community stakeholders, and that the administration was more interested in making a national splash than instituting change locally. Obviously, we cannot afford to continue those kinds of costly mistakes. When I'm mayor, we will hold regular education town hall meetings across the city where residents can share their ideas for school reform and school modernization. We'll create an electronic forum where new ideas can be shared and discussed 365 days a year. And I'll require our principals to work with local school restructuring teams on all major decisions impacting their schools. As mayor, I'll also make sure, Josh, that we have parity for public charter schools. We shouldn't even need to have to talk about this. Under current law, we're supposed to have uniform funding for all public schools, whether they're traditional public schools or public charter schools. This administration, unfortunately, has worked to undermine charter schools at almost every turn. I've successfully fought them as council chair, and we've defeated every attempt that's been effectuated to cut funding to public charter schools. When I'm mayor, I'm going to convene a blue ribbon panel of national and local experts that will deliver within my first 3 months of office a blueprint for parity in funding and services between our traditional and our public charter schools. We also need a mayor who sees education as part of a lifelong continuum. My plan does just that. And as mayor, I will make sure our education system serves all of our young people from birth through age 24. We'll start with early childhood education. There's no question in my mind, I'm sure not in yours either, that high-quality early education can close the achievement gap and ensure better outcomes for all of our children. That's why I'm planning to institute a comprehensive Success by 5 initiative to ensure that children are prepared for school and life by the time they get to the first grade. I think many of you know we've already begun that process with universal pre-K. Universal pre-K that I championed at the council. As mayor, I intend to finish the job of ensuring universal access, making sure that our pre-K programs meet research-based standards and that our pre-K students transition successfully into kindergarten. But we also need to realize that education begins even earlier than pre-K. Too many of our families are on infant and toddler waiting lists, and the cost for just one toddler can range between $10,000 and $20,000 a year. As mayor, I'll make prenatal, infant, and toddler care affordable and accessible to all of our children. We'll begin by focusing on those families with special needs children and children who are most at risk for developmental delays. We'll launch a local supplement to the federal child and dependent care tax credit program and broaden eligibility requirements to include more working and middle-class families. And yes, we'll give incentives like small business tax credits and increasing the child care subsidy rate for infants and toddlers to child development centers that expand programs in high-demand areas like we have east of the river. We'll also make sure that we take common-sense steps to define and achieve success in K-12 education. I'm proud of our standardized tests in the sense that they're climbing. But I also know that standardized test scores cannot and should not be the sole measure of success for our schools. You know, and I know, that we're seeing too many of our schools simply teaching to the test instead of really teaching our kids. And the achievement gap between white and African American students in this city is still far too wide. That tells me, obviously, that we're doing something wrong. Accountability in our schools needs to begin with our teachers. As mayor, I will hold our teachers accountable while giving them the resources and the respect that they deserve. The new teacher's contract that has now passed the council, did on Tuesday, and that I supported, is a great opportunity to instill a new era of accountability, meritocracy, and frankly, collaboration in our public education system in the District of Columbia. I'll work with the Chancellor and the teachers to make sure that the pay-for-performance plan in the contract is implemented fairly and effectively, and we'll make sure that we recognize and reward high-performing teachers while getting rid of low-performing teachers. We'll make sure that we have a fair and research-based evaluation system that holds our teachers accountable, but provides multiple strategies for assessing student growth beyond just test scores. We'll provide high-quality professional development to our teachers to make sure that our children are being taught by the most highly trained and talented and effective teachers. And I'll work with the Chancellor to make sure we're not only recruiting new teachers, but doing all we can to give them reasons to stay as a part of our educational system and succeed in our educational system right here in the District of Columbia. As mayor, I'll work to ensure that every school is living up to its potential and help low-performing schools benefit from school reform. We'll conduct a school-by-school assessment of reform strategies that have been tried to see what's worked and to learn from what hasn't worked. And we'll make sure that the strategies we use to help our low-performing schools are innovative and research-based, as opposed to a cookie-cutter approach based on what's going on in other schools. We'll make it a citywide goal that all children are at grade level by the 3rd grade in both reading and in math. I'll call for a renewed focus on reading in the early grades and work with the schools to align their standards, curriculum, and assessments with a focus on preventing reading and math problems. I also want to make sure that by the end of my first term, we'll see comprehensive middle and high schools in every part of our great city. This is truly, I think we need to recognize that this is truly one of the biggest shortcomings of the current administration's approach to education. There is a huge gap between our specialized high schools and our comprehensive middle and high schools. And that's one of the factors in our failure to truly tackle dropout rates in the District of Columbia. Rather than tackle the problem, this administration exacerbates it by proposing a new arts and magnet middle school, while whole segments of the city lack a middle school at all, and the current middle schools, those that exist, continue to struggle every day in the city. As mayor, I'll ensure that secondary school funding reaches every community and serves all students it's supposed to reach. We'll create partnerships with DC's great universities, teaching hospitals, museums, government institutions, the business community, and private foundations to bring innovative programs to our middle and high schools all across the city. And I'll task the Chancellor to work with each local school community to offer advanced academic and other special programs in every middle and high school. You know, I think you know, at the Education Forum the other night, I was asked how I would define a successful education system. My answer, frankly, was quite simple. A successful education system is one that prepares its students to compete in our economy and in our world. That's why, as mayor, I'll also work to integrate career and technical curricula in every one of our DC high schools. We know that we need to prepare our students for success in today's ever-changing global economy, whether they choose to pursue higher education or, after high school, to go straight to work. So we'll work with the business community to build modern, rigorous, high-quality career and technical training that will help all students, whether they're college-bound or technical career-bound. Under our program, students will have the opportunity to learn employable skills such as CAD and CAM design, network administration, computer security, computer systems programming, health and medical sciences, and much sought after construction skills in the District of Columbia. And we'll also work to balance school modernization efforts in all parts of the District of Columbia. In some areas of the city, school modernization projects have been spared no expense. But in other, more underserved areas, they're still waiting for modernization to take effect. In a Gray administration, we'll not only complete modernization efforts that are planned and in progress, but we'll make sure we have a school modernization plan that is comprehensive, inclusive, and meets both the immediate and long-term needs of school communities. And let me be clear about this next initiative. When I'm mayor, we will really and finally reform special education in the District of Columbia. Special education in the District of Columbia remains a national travesty, and the current mayor has failed to lead. Costs have risen $60 million in the last 3 years alone, and we waste tens of millions of dollars paying for legal fees, transportation, and private education for our special needs kids outside district boundaries. Instead, we'll work to meet special education needs inside our own system and begin to chip away at the $250 million that we spend every year on these costs. We're going to invest in early intervention services to deal with these needs early when they obviously are less severe and less expensive to treat. We'll serve children with developmental delays in mainstream pre-K and infant and toddler programs in order to mitigate the consequences of those delays later in life. Our plan will not only better serve our special needs children, but it also will save the district money, money that can then be reinvested in our education system to pay for our other school priorities. We'll also work to provide a safe learning environment for our students. When our teachers spend 25% or more of their time on disciplinary issues, something obviously has to change. I'll work with the chancellor and teachers to fully implement the behavior management and disciplinary programs that are contained in the new teacher's contract. And we'll focus on those students with chronic behavior issues to get them the kind of intervention and support they need to turn around and become successful learners. After high school, our students face a whole new set of challenges. Only 1 in 10 of our students graduates, and only 1 in 10 of our graduates from DC high schools then goes on to complete college. To attend and complete college, our young people often have to go to out-of-state institutions or pay exorbitant tuition rates at private universities because our city's public university has lacked the resources to be able to support their needs. As mayor, I want to make it easier for our DC high school graduates to go to college by working with our entire higher education community to offer high school graduates the support they need to continue to be successful. We'll begin by doubling the number of guidance counselors across all high schools. I knew Ms. Gill would like that one. And we're going to mandate that they work with every single high school senior and their family to develop a college-bound and job-ready personal action plan that will apply to their futures. I'll task the Deputy Mayor for Education to develop and offer citywide senior summer and first-year college prep programs for high school seniors at low cost, and all of that to help bridge the gap between a high school diploma and what's needed in the first year of college. And we'll work with private institutions and the business community to launch a college-bound and job-ready financial aid program. The public-private partnership will say to high school students, if you have financial need, and you participate in years of community service during or after high school, you will be rewarded with ongoing support, loans, and scholarships throughout your college or job training experience. Once our young people get to college, we need to make sure that we're helping transform them into the workforce of the future. I'll work with the higher education and business communities to help prepare our students for careers in the emerging industries of green energy, health informatics, biotech, and nanotech industries. And I'll continue my focus of giving residents access to workforce development and job training, including making the former Backus Middle School in Ward 5 and P.R. Harris right here in Ward 8 part of our community college system here in the District of Columbia. And finally, I want to talk about restoring transparency, accountability, and sound fiscal management to our education system. Education reform can only be successful if it's managed effectively. And that hasn't been the case in this administration. We've seen too many cases of inefficiency, too many cases of budget mismanagement, tax dollars squandered on failed projects, and missed opportunities at receiving federal dollars. As mayor, I'll bring sound fiscal stewardship to the education system. I'll begin by transforming the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Education into the lead agency for coordinating our educational investment portfolio. The Deputy Mayor will lead a comprehensive audit of the entire education system and identify clear budget controls to protect taxpayers and to cut waste in education spending. And we'll also work hard to put an end to financial shell games that hurt our local schools. Last year, the administration froze local spending and took $32 million out of local school budgets to cover overspending and other functions. As mayor, I intend to protect local school budgets and oppose any attempt to use local schools to pay for overspending in other areas of the budget. And we also, once and for all, will get our education data systems working in order to provide real accountability in this city. 4 years ago, we commissioned a computerized data system to track individual student enrollment, how they're doing academically, and how well specific programs and teachers are performing. This information is absolutely critical to our efforts to measure success and maintain accountability. 4 years and $6.9 million taxpayer dollars later, we still have no data system. And when I'm mayor, I promise you we will get it done. Yes. And when I'm mayor, we'll tell the public where DCPS money goes and reopen the DCS budget process to parents and the community. This administration has taken its war on transparency into our schools, and we intend to win and end the war on transparency in the District of Columbia. Financial reports are no longer posted on the internet, and budget changes are not announced, despite a legal mandate to do so. And while D.C. suburbs follow an open school budgeting process, the D.C. public school system no longer does. As mayor, I'll make sure the DCPS provides a detailed accounting of how it spends its money and posts its budget and financial reports on the internet. And we will reopen the budget process to parents and the community, allowing actual input and engagement from the community in how these budgets are formulated. All right. I hope you can tell that this clearly is a passion of mine. And as mayor, I intend to be an active, engaged participant in shaping the direction of education reforms in the District of Columbia. What I've talked about today covers much of our plan, but not every element of it. We posted the full plan on our website, vincegrayformayor.com, and I want to encourage everyone to go to our website and read it. Think about it, send us comments and ideas, because that's the only way it will work. And I promise you that we will listen to and we will read your input, and you probably will see much of it reflected in changes, because that's the kind of administration that the Gray administration will be in the future. And on day one, as mayor, I'm going to hit the ground running with an education plan that is comprehensive, that is ambitious, that is collaborative, and is what our students and our children and our parents deserve in the District of Columbia. Thank you all very much. Let's get it done.